Hey, what's up? Welcome back to A Method to the Madness, the weekly podcast where we discuss, analyze, and otherwise ponder our favourite films and television. I'm your host, Patrick Laverne. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Mitchie. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good, Pat. Still in isolation, I guess, to some degree, but it's getting better here. I'm particularly, I find it kind of ironic right now because there's some huge riots going on in America, and the movie we're reviewing today is kind of related to that.
True. Very true.
Like very similar. It's uncannily similar.
We seem to have a penchant for reviewing topical movies then.
Mm.
And today we are reviewing the 2019 film Joker, directed and written by Todd Phillips, starring Joaquin Phoenix, Robert De Niro, and Zazie Beetz.
Who's Zazie Beetz?
His imaginary girlfriend.
She's barely in the movie. Why'd you even say her?
Because she's a cool actress. I like her. She's in Atlanta.
Okay, fair enough.
As always, we'll go around to get our general impressions of the movie. What do you reckon of this the first time and your subsequent viewings?
I love this movie. The first time I watched it, though, I wasn't quite connected with it. And I think that kind of stemmed from the fact that I was comparing the Joker in this to Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight, which is not really a good way to watch movies, but it's what I did anyway. And I didn't really like Joaquin Phoenix's acting at first because I just was so determined to make sure that Dark Knight stays above Joker, you know, the usual crap. Like when you fall in love with a director's movies and then nothing about him is shit, you know. But when I watched it a second time, though, I honestly appreciate it a lot more than the third time. I appreciate it even more. And I just think this movie is honestly so good. Like best picture worthy. Instead of Parasite, this should have won over Parasite easy. It's everything about it is just phenomenal. It's so emotional, so moving. I like everything about it, from the acting to the score. I've got nothing bad to say about it, and it says some interesting things about a lot of things as well.
Yeah, similar to you, my opinions rapidly changed or evolved the more I thought about this movie. So, like, the first time, I wasn't too impressed, mainly due to the fact that nothing surprised me, which you would expect about a film about the Joker, you know, this agent of chaos. But, yeah, it was just such, like, a competently made film, so kind of directly associated with everything that exists about the Joker.
Mm.
But then, yeah, on subsequent viewings, and the more I thought about it, I really came to appreciate this film. So, firstly, what I like about it is it's super ambitious. It's tackling the Joker origin story, which, you know, is notoriously an innate characteristic that he doesn't have one, or at least that it's vague and uncertain.
Yeah.
That combined with the news that Joaquin Phoenix and Robert De Niro were going to be involved, you know, people who you would never expect to be in a superhero or supervillain movie. And plus, Scorsese was going to be involved in that. It was going to be a period piece set in the tone of Taxi Driver. So all this, you know, amounted to some wild expectations. I remember thinking, I was like, what the fuck are they going to do? Like, yeah, I was pretty excited to see it. And, on reflection, I really love this film's attempt at profundity, you know, not only with the ideas, but with the mood as well. It's got this kind of, like, dingy elegance to it, and it really goes for, like, that artistic quality to it, you know?
Mm.
Like, yeah, it really swings for the fences in that regard. So I appreciate it for that. You know, whether or not it achieves it is something we'll get into. But yeah. Alright. As always, we'll go through a quick plot summary to refresh your memory. So Joker follows the story of Arthur Happy Fleck, a mentally disabled child in a man's body. With a lifelong passion of bringing joy to the world, Arthur makes his living as a lamentable clown. Ironically, the world he lives in, Gotham City, is harsh and unforgiving, with great social tensions between the disparaged poor and the oligarchy. Arthur tries to fight this with his humour, but no one wants it. His humour is shunned, he's picked on and beaten. A series of events makes us empathise for Arthur, and on one particularly depressing night on the way home from his work, Arthur is abused on a train by symbols of the rich, 3 employees of Wayne Enterprises. He mentally snaps, brutally gunning down all 3. The subsequent reaction by the media sparks protests as the murders are seen as a defiant rise against the plutocracy. Arthur, not identified, relishes in the knowledge that he has finally had an influence upon the world, realizing that violence and chaos are what really move the world rather than humour. With grotesque sardonicism, he dons the clown as his symbol. After killing a popular entertainment host on live TV, protests escalate into riots, and Arthur is revered as the architect of these revolts. The Joker is born. Meanwhile, in a small alley next to a theatre, Thomas and Martha Wayne are ruthlessly killed by a rioter in front of their child, Bruce Wayne. Years later, he recounts this story in his head, and can't stop laughing at the irony that he now realizes that of the same event creating him and Batman. The end.
Yeah, do you reckon that's what he was really laughing about at the end? That's speculative.
That's how I interpret it, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I can't really explain. I guess that's a pretty good way of looking at it.
Well, yeah, I think, I don't know, it's, you know, as we said, it's like this film about the origin of the Joker, and I heard some criticism about Batman being in it, in the Waynes, but honestly, I don't think you could have a movie about the Joker without having the Waynes, Batman.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that, as we'll get into, Batman and the Joker are like, it's like, symbolically, they're the same as yin and yang. Like, they make each other.
Yeah, you can't have one without the other.
That's the whole kind of, like, duality in Tim Burton's Batman, is that they literally do make each other, because Joker is the one that kills his parents, and then Batman is the one who throws him into the vat of acid. And in a similar way...
Really?
Yeah. And in a similar way, you know, it's what happens in this film, too. Like, Joker causing the riots that kill his parents, and kind of like Bruce Wayne and his parents just being part of the plutocracy that controls the poor. You know, they kind of indirectly make each other still. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I love that. I love that interpretation of the ending. I think it's like really kind of clever, and it's because this movie is just so heavily steeped in Batman mythos that, yeah, it's just like a cool little bookend, I think.
Definitely, yeah.
Anyway, let's get into what we think this film's about. So, one of like the more straightforward sort of interpretations of this film is what they talk about in the Show Me the Meaning podcast, which is that the main theme of this film is recognition, and this is sort of like manifested in most plainly in the dynamic of like the disparaged poor not being recognized by those in power. So, you know, for example, like when he kills those three stockbroker dudes on the train, Thomas Wayne, like, you know, talks about it, and they get all the media attention, and it's kind of like the most pressing thing in like society at that point. And, you know, take Arthur's sort of spiel at the end. He says, oh, so Thomas Wayne cries about these guys, but, you know, if it was me lying on the sidewalk dead, you just walk right over me, kind of thing. And, you know, it's also kind of reflected in like Penny and Arthur both not being recognized by Thomas Wayne, sorry. Whether or not he is his actual father, he just refuses to acknowledge him. And this is kind of represented also a few ways symbolically throughout the film, like such as when he's being questioned by those cops and he tries to go through the automatic door and the sensor won't recognize him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, but that's just because he was going the wrong way.
Yeah, I know, but it works as an idea, so...
Yeah, of course, yeah. I guess that's a good way of... Yeah, interpreting that. Because what was the point otherwise?
Yeah. So yeah, I know, that's all pretty, like, obvious though. What do you reckon, Mitchie?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I mean, see it being a film of recognition, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of things in it, though. That's the thing about this movie, is that there's just so many different things that you can talk about. It's just, I don't know, like, it's. I don't think it's really that important, I guess. There's a lot of things in it, and you know, you shouldn't worry too much about it. It's just kind of, it's more about the story of Arthur Fleck, and that's the way I look at it. It's just his story. But I guess one thing that I kind of took away from it, I like the whole, I don't know why, like the whole idea of cause and effect kind of a little bit stood out to me than it normally does in film. Because cause and effect, the whole idea behind it is obviously innate in everything. Because for anything to progress in life or anything to occur, it obviously goes through a phase of cause and effect. Something happens and that causes something, and an effect occurs.
You can't really have a story without that principle.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why. But for me, I like the fact that like in this movie, it's about the ultimate effect of what's going to happen in this movie is the creation of the Joker. Right. It's his origin story, and therefore there's a lot of causes for that effect. In this film, there certainly are a lot of causes. I mean, what can you say is the exactly principal reason why the Joker is born? And you can't actually pinpoint one exact thing. And I just like that fact that it's kind of showcases how a lot of things in life are very complicated. When anything's born, it's the result of a series of events that are very complicatedly intertwined. Therefore, attributing any accountability to something to generate a reason for why something occurred is actually really, really difficult. And people kind of forget that sometimes. They're just so quick to jump on things and be like, that happened because of this.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that in Joker, it really blurs the distinction of how he's born, you know, because you can blame like 4 or 5 different people or the whole city or something. And I kind of stood out to me a bit. I like that kind of principle.
That was well said, man. Yeah, you're absolutely on point there. Yeah, it's this film. It's messy in that way, and again, in that Show Me the Meaning episode, I found it really funny that all these guys were kind of debating about like, oh, what does it mean? Does it mean anything? Because it plays with all these different themes and ideas. So can it really say something conclusive if it's trying to juggle all these things at once? And to that, I don't know. Obviously, I was listening to this from an outside perspective, and I was thinking, man, this is like pretty ironic that it's about they're talking about this in the context of the film about the Joker, who's again an agent of chaos. Like, it's exactly the kind of thing that he would find funny, trying to these people trying to make order out of this chaotic kind of thing. And that's exactly his ethos. He tries to disillusion everyone to try and make them see like the fallibility of the structures and order that is in place,
Maybe that's what he was laughing at the end.
He was like, people trying to interpret this film.
Yeah, people trying to interpret my story. Like,
holy shit,
my life is such a joke, and you guys try and see meaning in it, but there isn't.
God,
breaking the fourth wall in a very, I don't know, insinuating way.
Yeah, as if he has this meta clairvoyance about how the film is going to be received by the public.
Yeah, yeah.
Think of a joke. Do you want to tell it to me? You wouldn't get it.
I like the irony actually in how everything that causes a Joker to be born is a series of logical events, right? Like, everything is explainable. Everything that leads up to his creation just makes sense. You got like nothing is illogical. And yet the character that's born from such logical events is so illogical and doesn't actually follow any sense of order or anything like that. It was a nice irony I kind of thought about.
Yeah. I and you say like you were thinking about The Dark Knight the whole time you were watching this first time, and that I don't know. I feel like that's a bit inevitable considering just how good Heath Ledger is as the Joker.
Definitely.
What I like. In The Dark Knight, how, again, he has this kind of, like, supernatural prescience about, like, the events that's going to happen. For someone who's, a lot of his monologues in the film go something like, oh, I don't plan, I'm not one of those schemers. I just do things off the cusp of, my head. But he seems to have, like, this, like, supernatural quality of, like, just knowing when and how things are going to happen, as if he's meticulously planned it out. And
that's actually a good point.
Yeah, I like how in this Joaquin Phoenix film, it kind of like it gives a possible explanation of of how like Arthur started the riots. It's like it wasn't at all intentional, but it's just like kind of the chaos of the universe just kind of came together, and he just ended up like it was still by his actions that kind of, you know, caused all this to happen, but it was nowhere near planned to the point of like how you would think it would have been planned if you were like one of these writers, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just a cool connection there if you're familiar with the context and the history of the Joker.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is actually something I want to talk a bit about. So, for those who don't know, there is this really kind of famous book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. And what this book is essentially an articulation of various like innate myths and stories from all different cultures, from all different time periods. Well, actually not from all different time periods. They're mainly from they're mainly folk tales that are really, really old. And the point he illustrates throughout this book is that despite these cultures not having any contact with each other, the fables and stories they all tell are strikingly similar, and have like weirdly like similar qualities and characteristics about him. He ties this to Jung's theory of the collective unconscious, which, for those who don't know, I'll explain a bit. He says that behind each individual's unconscious, the blocked off residue of the past, lies the collective unconscious of the human race, the blocked off memory of our racial past, even our pre-human experiences. This unconscious racial memory makes powerfully effective for us as a group of primordial images, shaped by the repeated experience of our ancestors and expressed in myths, religions, dreams, fantasies, and literature. So basically, it's like this. These are just like innate sort of like thoughts and qualities that we all have in our unconscious, and that's what, and it's reflected in, you know, these myths that all these wildly separate cultures, you know, pass down to each other.
And that's regardless of culture, right? Like, it exists across different cultures, all these ideas.
Yeah. And by extension, this applies to like all storytelling that has proliferated, you know, since then. And it's, you know, as dressed up and sort of like ornately complex as stories might have gotten since then, and, you know, like culture specific, the point is that they all have the same innate quality about them. They all follow this structure called the monomyth, which is pretty much like ties to this other concept called the hero's journey, which is like, obviously there's this whole fucking book written about it, so it's a bit hard to explain now, but pretty much in the most broad abstract sense, it's the hero starts in a world of familiarity, a world of order, and then an inciting incident happens, something bumps them out of this world, or they desire something, so they chase it into a realm of unfamiliarity, so chaos. And then in that chaos, they have to adapt to this, you know, chaos and to this new world. And as they adapt, as they acclimate to this, they gain new knowledge and wisdom, which allows them to view that chaos in a realm of order now. So it's basically a journey from order to chaos and then back to order. And then in that process, you are changed because you have this new experience and this new knowledge. And that, yeah, pretty much that is like the seed of storytelling. Like all stories or follow not, well, you know, obviously there's fucking stories that don't follow this principle for the sake of it just being, you know, and those are stories too, but in Robert McKee's book Story, he talks about how like storytelling is about principles and rules. Like, you can make a story without these principles, but it probably won't be entertaining or good. And pretty much what he illustrates is that this monomyth is sort of the key structure to like emotionally fulfilling stories, pretty much, because it is what happens to us as humans all the time.
Yep.
Anyway, in these myths, in these like old stories, there are archetypes, and archetypes are pretty much vague categories of like characters that appear in all these myths. So in the monomyth, there's like a list of these characters that, appear pretty regularly, which is the hero, the anti-hero, the wise fool, the devil figure, the outcast, the double, the scapegoat, the temptress, the virgin, and the trickster. Now, obviously, with the sort of complexity you get with stories, these archetypal characters, they come and go, they fuse together. It's pretty much up to like the author of, what he chooses to include and what not to. But nevertheless, they are still present in so many stories and examples of folktales and myths that you can't really deny that these are a thing, pretty much.
Yeah.
If you're interested in these kind of like sort of primordial like schools of thought, thought so ancient that it pretty much gets to like the innate qualities of your consciousness, then I'd recommend reading The Hero with 1,000 Faces. It's a bit of a hard read, to be fair, but I don't know, it's useful in sort of like framing how you see current stuff that is just so decorated now because of the evolution that stories and art has taken over thousands of years and stuff. Anyway, all right, so from that list, obviously two stand out that could relate to Joker: the devil figure and the trickster. Now, I would say, just from like a quick, glance at that, I would say the Joker is more in line with the trickster.
Why is that?
Because he is like I don't know, he is this sort of like Luciferian figure, the Joker, but...
I mean, the Joker he's the trickster's kind of a smart person, right? Who connives and foils, and he tends to do that a lot. I mean, calling him a devil is kind of like, like you could see the relation there, but I don't think you're right. Definitely, the trickster seems to fit him more than a devil kind of perspective. Yeah, because he's not.
But again, evil. Like they mix and match. So
they do. Yeah. Okay,
so I want to sort of read you this passage from The Hero with 1,000 Faces. For context, he's talking about this Maori folktale that kind of parallels the story of Adam and Eve. So he says, a clown figure working in continuous opposition to the well-wishing creator very often appears in myth and folktale, as accounting for the ills and difficulties of existence this side of the veil. Universal is the casting of the antagonist, the representative of evil, the role of the clown. Devils, both the lusty thickheads and the sharp, clever deceivers, are always clowns. So, in this case, this clown figure is in... Again, to compare it to Adam and Eve, it would be like the snake, right? Lucifer, basically. And if you... I don't know, how much... Do you know of this, like, the Adam and Eve story, Mitchie, about how, like, the snake tricks Eve into eating the apple?
You basically said all I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
well, I mean, that is pretty much all you need to know. Like, he tricks them, right? So, I don't know, man. Like,
and that is the devil that's doing that. So, the devil is a trickster as well. I mean, that's kind of interesting. It's kind of like an antagonist is just all of these different things. And I guess the devil could encompass all of those things as well, because the devil is the ultimate antagonist.
You have these stories from eons ago of principles of, good guy and bad guy in storytelling. And obviously that isn't something that's gone away. That's probably like one of the first things that like kids learn when they experience stories. It's like, who's the good guy and who's the bad guy? And I don't know. I guess in like recent history, the most apt example is like Luke and Darth Vader from Star Wars. Just like so obviously the hero and the villain and obviously what Star Wars does in the end is it kind of like subverts that, but it even subverting that is still playing on that principle of what is a good guy and what is a bad guy,
and making bad good.
It still like uses the structures of that. So and again, going back to Robert McKee, like this is literally on like page 4 of his book story. It's very like important that he says this outright. He says, stories about archetypes, not stereotypes. The archetypal story unearths a universally human experience and then wraps itself inside a unique culture-specific expression. So, obviously, relating it back to this film, this archetype of the trickster has like kind of found its full form in the Joker. So he is pretty much like the trickster of Western society, if you think about it. And, well, like I say, if you think about it, because I was thinking about this earlier, when you say good guy and bad guy, like, who comes to mind, right? Like, I don't know, for me, it honestly probably would be Batman and the Joker. They're just so fundamentally ingrained into the consciousness of Western culture. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, but not everyone would think Batman and Joker.
No.
Definitely not.
No, obviously not, but, like, a large majority would.
Yeah. When it comes to heroes and stuff, yeah.
Yeah. And, I don't know, there's just something to be said for, like, the sort of, like, the universal quality of antagonism that the Joker is now in culture.
Yeah, there is something really, like, just about the two of them that really stand out in terms of all superhero comics, movies, whatever. Those two as a duo, as a protagonist-antagonist, good-bad duo, they just stand out the most. Like, I can't even think of anyone in Marvel that compares, you know, like, who, like,
Exactly,
I guess the best would be...
They're specific, right?
Yeah, it's like, the best
yeah.
I can think of is Magneto and Professor X, but even then, it's just, like, not really kind of friends anyway, but, like, yeah, it's just, I don't know. You're right, like, there's something innately really good about them being like that.
And also, like, Magneto and Professor X are, like, you know, what they represent is, like, I don't know, I guess, like, freedom versus...
Actually, that's
they're
a
just
bad
like different...
example. Yeah, no, they're not. They're working for the same thing anyway. Yeah.
But like you know, that's, if you explore this concept of freedom, you get specific, and you get these two branches of freedom which are represented by those two characters, and like that's Batman and the Joker are just so symbolically versatile as these concepts of good and evil. You know, like I don't know, it just stands out as these innate sort of things. What was I going to say? So harking back to, you know, what we've been talking about, how this film's kind of messy in its themes and ideas, and it tries to tackle a lot. I would posit that this film isn't really trying to say anything about any of those themes. Rather, it's just sort of illustrating what this archetype represents, this cultural archetype, you know, because he is so rich with history and context at this point that he is this cultural myth. Well, like, I mean, the struggle between Batman and the Joker is this cultural myth, and this film is just sort of like as if it was a dictionary of this archetype, you know.
My life is nothing but a comedy.
Well, let me get this straight. You think that killing those guys is funny?
I do. And I'm tired of pretending it's not. Comedy is subjective, Murray. Isn't that what they say? All of you, the system that knows so much, you decide what's right or wrong the same way that you decide what's funny or not.
So yes, I that's how I interpret the film, and with that in mind, I don't know, I like it even more. I whether or not that's what Todd Phillips had in mind, I think it's really clever.
Yeah, I think I like that.
Yeah.
Rather than talking about all the themes that it explores, like society and money and class divide and all that, I think it's a better way of looking at it. It kind of, because the whole point of the movie is it's an exploration of the Joker. You know, it's not about other shit. Like it's a biography. You know, it's like it's a biographical movie that's just simply about the Joker, and exploring that can yield sometimes a lot more kind of insight into motifs and themes than actually looking at all the kind of obvious things like society and stuff. Like, I always compare this movie to kind of like Hannibal Lecter, I compare the Joker to Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs and all that, because I particularly like those movies, and the way those movies go about is that they kind of, you know, like there are kind of other themes in there, and the movies are based around a lot of murder and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's kind of a biography about Hannibal Lecter's character, and that's what makes the movie so compelling, is the exploration of him as a person and how crazy and whatever he is. And I think that's what makes a Joker, you know, it's the person, it's a central character, not all the stuff surrounding that.
Yeah. as we said, like in our Parasite podcast, it's how these ideas are put into play through actual people. It's like philosophy in a vacuum is not really useful or helpful. It's unless you see how it is applied in the context of life.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Did you know that they're actually making a second movie, a sequel to this?
that is crazy.
Yeah, it is
I would not
crazy.
have expected that.
Same director, same actor. So Joaquin Phoenix is the Joker. But it's confirmed that there will be no Batman in it as well. So I don't know what other characters will be in it from the comic book, but be interesting. I presume a villain.
Yeah, actually, that didn't occur to me that they might get another villain.
Yeah.
Um,
Or at least allude to him or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
One of the sort of interpretations of this film in the larger context of DC is that this is not the actual Joker that Batman grows up to fight
Yeah.
because he is just too dumb. He's not conniving enough. And I don't know, if they do make a sequel, they could sort of explore this. They could explore him, sort of like becoming this really smart, conniving
Yeah.
trickster.
Because
Yeah.
that's such a cop-out fucking theory. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's not that... Like, there's a lot of time before Batman becomes Batman. Batman's Bruce
Yeah.
Wayne. He's a kid in that. It's at least 20 years, right? And he could
Yeah,
be really
exactly.
smart by then. Wise old man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I love about like this dynamic between the Joker and Batman too is that the Joker is usually like much older than Batman. So every time Batman gives him a beatdown, he's just like beating this helpless old man.
Yeah.
And like it's just, I don't know, it works really well in giving you that like conflicting feeling of fuck, this dude's like such an arsehole. He's a murderer, but
But poor bloke.
like when Batman's just like beating him down, you don't feel good because it's just like
Yeah.
there's no, it's a Pyrrhic victory,
And that's kind of how like the movie works. Like, you both sympathize but hate the Joker, and you understand where he
Yeah.
comes from. So it gives you a bit of perspective of his background, and then you kind of feel sorry for him, even though he is a Joker and he's a terrible person.
But yeah, I'm keen for that. I'll watch it.
Mm.
I reckon they'll do a good job.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be as good, but I reckon it will be good as sequels go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? If they put him in the Robert Pattinson Batman, I wouldn't mind. That
Nah.
seems like a cool idea. No.
Nah. When's that Batman movie coming out?
2021, I think.
Yeah, okay. I wonder if they just keep going. Batman movies, never ending.
I mean, yeah, this it's what an archetype is. It's just like endlessly explorable.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. All right, so I think we'll wrap it up. You got any recommendations this week, Mitchie?
Well, as I've already mentioned, I like to try and give recommendations that are not randomly, so something related to the movie we're talking about.
Right.
And, yeah, you know what I mean. As I've already said, I think Silence of the Lambs is a great movie to watch because, again, Hannibal Lecter is actually... I know you haven't seen the movies for them, Pat, but he's actually a massive... Well, not massive, but he's a big character in film. Like, a lot of people refer to him when they talk about psychopaths or cannibals. And he's actually a big figure. I'm not sure what the origin of his story is, but I think the first movie with Hannibal Lecter came out back in the 80s or something. It was about some detective looking for a cannibal, and that cannibal was Hannibal Lecter. But it never really gained fame until the Silence of the Lambs movie, which is very big, with Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins. And I honestly love it. It's one of my favorite movies, and it gives you good insight into like an evil character. And much like the Joker, you kind of get an idea of a lot of things about antagonists, and yeah, it's just highly recommended. I would definitely watch that movie. Plus its sequels, they're also pretty good.
Yeah, cool.
Except he's got an origin story though, and that's like the trashiest movie. One of the worst movies I've ever seen, so don't watch that.
All right. Yeah, well, I guess in the same vein of relevant recommendations, if you want to sort of see why like we think this film is so rich, go explore some of the works that have the Joker in it. So The Killing Joke is a graphic novel, also got adapted into a animated movie. I think both are all pretty good. What else? The Dark Knight Returns is a really famous graphic novel that it's mainly about Batman and Superman, but it does have the Joker in it. But it's just an all-around really, really deep exploration of those characters. And Under the Red Hood is another... It's not really... Actually, that's not really about the Joker, but it's just a good Batman movie. You should watch that if you want. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Alright, so where can they find us, Mitchie?
I don't know. Where can they find us? Normally you say this.
Oh, do I? All right.
Yeah.
You can find
No,
us.
I know it.
You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and iTunes. You can check out our Facebook and Instagram pages as well, or visit our website at amttm.com. If you have any insights, queries, opinions, anything you'd like to send to us, you can at mail@amttm.com.
We're also on a bunch of other things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, as we've already said in one of our podcasts, maybe, we're being distributed also onto Breaker, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Radio Public.
So for those people who exclusively listen to stuff on that, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, next time we will be covering what?
Midsommar.
Nice.
Yeah. The 2019 Ari Aster movie, and it's his second feature film. The first one being Hereditary, which
we're both fans of.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a fan of it, but I'm also scared of it. I suck with horror movies. And yeah, Midsommar's pretty scary from what I've heard. So yeah.
Yeah, keen.
Have a watch of that before you listen to that one.
All right, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
Bye.
You know what I noticed? Nobody panics when things go according to plan. Even if the plan is horrifying. If tomorrow I tell the press that, like, a gangbanger will get shot, or a truckload of soldiers will be blowing up, nobody panics. Because it's all part of the plan. But when I say that one little old mare will die, well, then everyone loses their minds. Introduce a little anarchy. Upset the established order, and everything becomes chaos. I'm an agent of chaos. Oh, and you know the thing about chaos? It's bare